Thank you, Jara. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. I am Barbara Bonney, this morning's worship associate. Our church is a place where you're free to be you. Remember Marlo Thomas's song, Free to Be You and Me? That's us. So bring your entire self, your questioning mind, and your expansive heart to this beloved community. Our mission is to welcome all with love, to support learning and spiritual growth, to serve our wider community, and to work for justice, equity, and inclusion. Please make sure to read the announcements and inserts in today's order of service, where you can find important information regarding accommodations, upcoming events, and our new process for collecting donations and joys and concerns. Regarding our new process for collecting donations, we want to take a moment to remind you why we've made this change. By removing the offering from the service itself, we create more time in the service. This allows us the opportunity to add more spiritual elements to the service, such as meditation, expanded silence, or a reading. If you value these elements, it's important that we adjust to this new process for collecting donations. If we cannot adjust, we will need to go back to passing the offering plate every Sunday. The flowers today are given by Janet Phillips in loving memory of the 1-year anniversary of her mother's passing. There will be a special congregational meeting on Sunday, March 17th, immediately following the service. Childcare will be provided. The only order of business is to vote on the proposed bylaws amendments that were introduced at the January 28th congregational meeting. You will receive an email with information about attending Zoom if you can't be here in person. Because members have received emailed copies of the amendments twice, there will be no hard copies available at the meeting. If you would like to view the recording of the February 27th Zoom forum on the bylaws amendments, please see your order of service for instructions. Before we greet our neighbors, I want to be sure you know about our potluck following the service. All are welcome, even if you didn't bring food. There will be plenty. Please allow those with mobility issues to go first. And now let's take a moment to wave to the people watching from home, and then rise and greet our neighbors or say hello in the chat. When you hear the singing bowl ring, please return to your seats. John, will you please come forward and light our chalice this morning? All around the world, the light of honest thought shines, showing people the path to their own authentic faith. All around the world, the warmth of community glows, drawing people in from loneliness and estrangement. All around the world, the flame of justice burns, inspiring people to acts of faith-filled courage. Here too, may the light and warmth of this chalice be to us a beacon of truth, generosity, and compassion, that we may learn the ways of faith and love. Our first hymn this morning is number 298, Morning Has Broken, found in the gray hymnal. Please rise as you are able. Our message for all ages this morning is entitled Yoko by Rosemary Wells and will be read by Scott Kelly.
Good morning. Could I have the children please come gather around? This book has lovely illustrations. And instead of a wonder question at the end, I'm going to have a reminder to the adults about the importance of trying new things and to not ignore people, but to try to welcome them by appreciating differences and not just similarities. So, Yoko. What would you like for lunch today, my little cherry blossom asked Yoko's mother. All my favorite things, please, answered Yoko. Yoko's mother spread steamed rice on a bamboo mat. She rolled up a secret treasure inside each piece. Then she packed it all in a willow-covered cooler. Have a wonderful day at school, my little cherry blossom, said Yoko's mother. I will, answered Yoko. Yoko said hello to all her friends. Everyone in Mrs. Jenkins' class sang the Good Morning song. At noon, Mrs. Jenkins rang the lunch bell. Lunch boxes out and open, please, boys and girls, said Mrs. Jenkins. Timothy unwrapped a peanut butter and honey sandwich. Valerie had cream cheese and jelly. Fritz had a meatball grinder. Tulip had Swiss cheese on rye. Hazel had egg salad on pumpernickel. Doris had squeezed cheese on white, and the Franks had Franks and beans. Yoko opened the willow-covered cooler. Inside was her favorite sushi. Tucked in the rice roll were the crispiest cucumber, the pinkest shrimp, the greenest seaweed, and the tastiest tuna. "What's in your lunch?" asked one of the Franks. "Ick! It's green. It's seaweed." I know people like the Franks. "Oh no," said the other Frank. "Don't tell me that's raw fish." "Watch out, it's moving," said Doris. "Yuck-o-rama," said Tulip and Fritz. Valerie blew the playtime whistle. "Everybody out," said Valerie. Yoko did not want to play ball or swing on the swings. "What's wrong, Yoko?" asked Mrs. Jenkins. "Everybody laughed at my lunch," answered Yoko. "They'll forget about it by snack time," said Mrs. Jenkins. But they didn't. During the snack time song, Yoko opened a thermos cup of red bean ice cream. "Red bean ice cream is for weirdos," snorted the Franks. Mrs. Jenkins switched to the friendly song. Mrs. Jenkins is very wise. Mrs. Jenkins knew the friendly song was not enough. Late into the evening, she fretted about Yoko. Finally, the answer came to her. She typed up a little note. "Dear parents, Monday will be International Food Day at Hilltop School. Everybody is asked to bring in a dish from a foreign country. Everybody must try a bite of everything. Happy cooking, Mrs. Jenkins." "We will make a deluxe sushi for the whole class," said Yoko's mother. "Don't worry, my little cherry blossom. Everyone will try our sushi and everyone will love it." On Monday morning, Valerie and her mother carried in a plate of enchiladas. Timothy and his mother made Caribbean coconut crisps. Hazel brought Nigerian nut soup. Harry brought Brazil nuts. Doris brought Irish stew. Tulip brought potato knishes. Monica brought a pitcher of mango smoothies. Fritz brought spaghetti. Big Frank cooked up a pot of Boston Franks and beans. Of course he did. At noon, Mrs. Jenkins rang the lunch bell and everyone sang the Clean Hands song. "What does International Food Day mean to us, boys and girls?" asked Mrs. Jenkins. "Try everything," said everybody. When Valerie blew the playtime whistle, there was not a nibble of nuts or a sip of smoothie left. But no one had touched even one piece of Yoko's sushi. Isn't that sad? Yoko sat under the learning tree. Suddenly, she heard the clickety-click of chopsticks. It was Timothy. He was still hungry. "Let me show you how," said Yoko. Timothy polished off the rest of the crab cones his own way. "Can we have sushi again tomorrow?" he said. "I'll ask my mother," answered Yoko. During the school bus song, Timothy found a coconut crisp in his pocket. He gave it to Yoko. "It's even better than red bean ice cream," said Yoko. On the bus, Timothy and Yoko made plans to push their desktops together and open a restaurant the very next day. What do you think is going to be on the menu? And they did. They ordered tomato sandwiches and dragon rolls. For dessert, they had brownies with green tea ice cream, and they couldn't have asked for anything more. And there's their menu. All right, that is the end of the story, so it'll be time to go to your classrooms.
Classes.
Next in our order of service is the responsive reading, which says unconditional love, but the one that ended up in our insert is actually the world religion's responsive reading, which will suffice for today. So I invite you to either look on the screen above and behind the pulpit or in the insert in your order of service. I will read what is in plain font, and if you would respond with what is in italicized font. Mindful of our religious diversity and prophetic call to shape the future, we draw our wisdom and inspiration from the world's many religions. Judaism, which reminds us of the ground of our being, the great I Am. Christianity, which reminds us to love one another, even as we have been loved. Islam, which reminds us to remember God in all we do. Humanism, which reminds us to celebrate life for its own sake. Earth-centered traditions, which reminds us to stay rooted in the source. Hinduism, which reminds us that we are part of the greater reality. Buddhism, which reminds us to practice compassion. And Taoism, which reminds us to live life in harmony. Our next hymn this morning is number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. Please turn to it and rise as you are able. So I've been here 6 months. Oh, thank you. I wasn't fishing for an applause, but I'll take it. Thank you. I'm glad you think it's still going well. I think things are going well. But, you know, one of the things that I've sort of noticed over my 60 years on this planet is certain things about human nature. And one of the things I've noticed is that when we meet new people, whether it's friends or romantic partners or whatever the case may be, and we're getting to know people, there's a certain, usually energetic dynamic and some fun in getting acquainted with another human being. But as I often tell my son, who's now 24 years old, as he begins to enter his adulthood and he meets friends and potential romantic partners, I say to him, Preston, here's something I've learned in 60 years on this planet. When you meet people, if you think you found a friend, give them 6 months. Because in 6 months, that initial dynamic and the fun of getting to know each other will wear off and people return to their set points. And then you know what you've got. And if you're interested when it comes to romance, I tell them, 2 years, buddy. Give it 2 years. So we're at the 6-month point, and I think we're getting to know each other, and I think we're returning to our set points, which seems to me to be a good time to return to some of the themes I brought along with me to this developmental ministry. One of the themes is right here. You may not all be able to see that. Do you remember my sermon, The Light and the Rose, by any chance? You have to think back a ways. It was a riff on a poem by Hafez, which I think goes like this. How did the rose ever open its heart and show all its beauty to the world? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. And I encouraged us in that sermon to think of ourselves perhaps as the light, encouraging the rose to bloom. In other words, I encouraged us to think about what is our place in the life of other people. Are we coming from a place of light and nourishment, trying to help other people become the best of who they are? Or are we not? And I suggested you hold that light and rose metaphor as something you could use as a mnemonic device to always remember to come from your best self. And that is a tall order, isn't it? It is hard always to come from our best self. It is hard to remember to take the next step in love, to speak the next word with love, to think the next thought with love. And I'll bet a dime to a dollar that most of us spend at least 90% of our time operating out of habit, which is a reflection more of our lower nature than our higher nature, and we forget to come from love. So this morning, the message is simple. I want to remind us to be the light, but I want to talk a little bit about why it's so hard to remember to be the light. One of the things that I've also noticed in my 60 years on the planet is that we are a forgetful species. It's really hard to remember things over the course of time, especially given how many things we have to remember. And I actually once read a study that the average person can't hold more than 2 or 3 variables in their head at the same time. And if you give them more than that, they're likely to forget almost immediately. And even if you don't give them more than that, the variables we hold in our head get pushed out by other variables that enter our head over time, and then those are off the radar, and these are on the radar, and it's like this train that keeps passing with all these things we have to pay attention to. And it captures our attention, each of these things, and so we forget what we thought we once already knew. And a lot gets lost. We're just forgetful. We're forgetful. So we don't always come from our best selves. It reminds me of a poem by Billy Collins called Forgetfulness. The name of the author is the first to go, followed obediently by the title, then the plot, the heartbreaking conclusion, the entire novel which suddenly becomes one that you have never read, maybe never even heard of. As if one by one the memories that you used to harbor decided to retreat to the southern hemisphere of your brain, to a little fishing village where there are no phones. Long ago, you kissed the names of the 9 muses goodbye and watched the quadratic equation pack its bag. And even now, as you memorize the order of the planets, something else is slipping away. State flower, perhaps. The address of an uncle. The capital of Paraguay. Whichever it is you are struggling to remember, it is not poised on the tip of your tongue or even lurking in some obscure corner of your spleen. It has floated away down a dark mythological river whose name begins with an L, as far as you can recall. So it's no wonder you rise in the middle of the night to look up the date of a famous battle in a book on war. And it's no wonder the moon in the window seems to have drifted out of a love poem that you thought you once knew by heart. I love that poem. And the older I get, the more I love it. And the older I get, the more I have to Google it to remember it. We're so forgetful. This is one of the reasons we struggle so much. It's because we forget. It is not because we're sinful. You know, the Judeo-Christian tradition teaches us that the great violation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden was the transgression of God's law not to eat of the fruit of the tree of life. No, the knowledge of good and evil. That's the one. Tree of life they could eat from. The knowledge of good and evil tree they could not eat from. But they did it. And they transgressed God's law. And God punished Adam, and he punished Eve, and he punished the serpent. And this is original sin, into which we, supposedly, according to the Judeo-Christian tradition, have all been born. And the footnote to that particular theological lesson is about 3,000 pages, which you're not going to get today. But what you are going to get today is a little bit of a different interpretation of the story of the Garden of Eden. In Islam, the story of the Garden of Eden is very similar, but they don't explain the fact that Adam and Eve ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil by a willful transgression of God's law, albeit at the hands of a stealthy serpent. They simply tell us Adam and Eve forgot. They just forgot. Their minds wandered as they walked through the garden and they met a talking serpent. Their minds wandered from God. And they came upon the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and they partook. They just forgot. I love that version of the story much more. Because I don't think we're born into original sin. I think we are born into forgetfulness. I really do. And when we forget, we tend to act egotistically. From our habitual conditioned animalistic nature that just kind of operates on automatic all the time when we're not remembering to remember. Hence the title of today's sermon, Trying to Remember to Remember. And once you master that, the next stage is trying to remember to remember to remember. Because forgetfulness is a slippery slope. And when we forget, we don't come from our best selves. And that's what really today is all about. Now that I've been with you for 6 months and I've been preaching on this kind of thing, how's it going for you? Are you remembering? Are you remembering to remember? Are you coming from your best self most of the time? Or are you lost in forgetfulness and maybe coming a bit more from ego than you would really want to? So how do we remember to remember? One of the things that I know about Unitarian Universalists is, man, do we love mental content? Yeah? Voracious book readers, voracious news watchers. And when it comes to sermon, I want to hear something interesting, preferably something I haven't thought of before. Come on, you've got all week to think about it. Feed my mind, right? But I don't preach informationally. I preach transformationally. And so that means eventually I come around to the same themes over and over again because I know we forget. And if we don't forget, if we don't remember, if we forget, we don't change. Without change, there's no transformation. Usually, when I come around to information a second time, the congregation is pretty much okay with it. They'll tolerate that. But if I come around a third time with the same information, because I'm really trying to drive home a point until we get it in our bones, and I'm not seeing us get it in our bones, the receiving line becomes very interesting. Did you have a busy week, Alex? I think we heard this not too long ago, or some iteration thereof, because we'd rather feed our minds than grapple with our hearts. Not exclusively, but predominantly. But what we're trying to remember is not up here. It's here. So we have to come back around again and again. I have some mnemonic devices I've developed over the years to help me remember to remember. I'm going to share a few of those with you today toward the end of the sermon, which is only about 10 minutes away. But right now I want to share one in particular. I discovered this gentleman, Sami Yusuf, is a modern-day Sufi musician. And if you don't know him, go home and Google him. Send me an email. I'll send you a link to what I think is just a phenomenal concert that he put on. And he brings a lot of spirituality into his music. He reaches back into medieval Qawwali music, but he also brings his own compositions, his own modern compositions into his music. This is a song that you're about to hear that he wrote, and the words to this song should be in the order of service. Do you have some? Yeah, I think where I used to put sermon notes, I now put chorusan with lyrics. So this is a song he wrote, and it's an incredibly beautiful song. And I have begun to include it over the last few months because I only discovered it recently. I've come to include it in the last few months in my day-to-day life. When I find my mind wandering to places I don't want it to go because it's not reflecting my best self, I literally go to my computer and I put on Pandora and I punch this song and I play it over a few times until I remember. It's incredibly helpful, and that's one of the things I do. So I'm going to share it with you now. Texts are going to play it here, and I encourage you to sort of just sit with it, read the lyrics, let it be a meditation.
turned to gold. Was that you long ago? Corazón, can you guide me to the treasures I have lost? Can you show me every secret I forgot? When I came, you asked me where I had come from. You said my homeland was my kingdom all along. I must go. Send me home. Breathe in me. I have healed. I have grown. Give me peace in my soul. Corazón, can you guide me to the treasures I have lost? Can you show me every secret I forgot? When I came, you asked me where I had come from. You said my homeland was my kingdom and my secret all along. Send me home.
This is not an infomercial for Sami Yusuf, but if you enjoy that, email me and I'll send you some information. He's a profoundly spiritual figure, and I just absolutely love what he's bringing to the world. So, Khorasan is an ancient city in the Middle East, and it had great spiritual import. So this song is about going on pilgrimage from your homeland to Khorasan. And you go on the pilgrimage because you realize, I've lost my treasures. I no longer remember my secrets. So I go on a journey to rediscover my treasure in my secrets. And I get to Khorasan. And he anthropomorphizes Khorasan and says, when I came, You asked me where I had come from. You said my homeland was my kingdom all along. And the lesson there is not original, but it's profoundly important. And the lesson there is everything you need is already contained within you. You don't have to travel to find your treasures and rediscover your secrets. You simply need to go inward to your true homeland, find your essential self, and act from love. Beautiful notion, right? And it can be embodied if we remember to remember. And that's easy to absorb sitting here in our beloved sacred space with one another, isn't it? But then we have to go out into the world. And there are scoundrels out in the world. And even if we remember the light and the rose, if somebody's enough of a scoundrel, we've got a pocket full of, yeah, but this one, and yeah, but this one, and yeah, but this one, to rationalize away our need to be loving toward everybody, even the ones that challenge us, or especially the ones that challenge us the most. Consider those scoundrels a gift. They are an opportunity for you to test how far you've gotten on this path. They are the grist for your mill. In the Sufi tradition, if you go see the sheikh, who's the spiritual leader of the Sufi group, and you sit down with the sheikh doesn't say, what sacred text are you reading? What spiritual practice are you doing? The sheikh says, tell me about your family. How's that going for you? Tell me about your business. Tell me about your kids, your friends. And what the sheikh is looking for there is your report on the actuality of your interpersonal dynamics in life. And the sheikh absorbs this and says, here's the work you need to do for this to go better for you. So the scoundrels in our lives are very important tests of our own spiritual maturity. There's a nice story I'll paraphrase for you. There was a Eastern European mystic named Gurdjieff, and those of you who are studying the Enneagram with me know that Gurdjieff is the one who brought the Enneagram to the West. And Gurdjieff spent his entire life cultivating spiritual knowledge and spiritual practice and his own personal transformation. And he had a school. He had students, adult students, who wanted to follow his path because they were impressed with Gurdjieff's presence in the world, the type of man he was when he was with them. And it so happened that among his students, there was one student in particular who was a real scoundrel. Everybody agreed on this. We can't stand this guy, and he's getting in the way of the work, and we don't like being with him, yada, 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 yada. Well, so the guy eventually figured this out, and he decided, this isn't the place for me, and he left. And all the problems went away. And everybody was happy again, and everybody was content, and they didn't have to struggle with the scoundrel. And while they thought the problem was solved, Gurdjieff realized, now I've got a problem. I got no material to work with. So he tracked the guy down, and he paid him to come back to class. And all the students complained, why did you bring this scoundrel back? He said, because there was no reactivity There was no material for me to use with you, to work with you. And now we have it again. The scoundrels in our lives, as much as they may stress us out and frustrate us, as much as we may, but this except for you, they're very important. They're the test of our spiritual maturity. But to pass the test, we have to remember, we need mnemonic devices. I have a friend in southern India. Most of you have heard that every 2 or 3 years I go on pilgrimage to southern India. And I've been like a half a dozen times, and I've gotten to know quite a few people there. And one of the people who I just absolutely love, this man, his name is Kumar, and he's one of the farmhands there. He's a hard worker. He cuts the cows' grass, and he takes care of the cows, and he does labor around the ashram. And I've gotten to know Kumar over the years. And the last time I was there, I learned something very interesting about Kumar. He was gone for the first 2 weeks, I think it was. And so I asked around, and I said, half the reason I come on pilgrimage is to see Kumar. Where's Kumar? Oh, he's on pilgrimage. 2 weeks? Yeah, it's 300 miles to the temple. Okay. And he has to walk it. Oh, okay. Now I get the 2 weeks. Travels 300 miles on foot to a temple in India every year. It's like the trip to Mecca. Now, if that's part of your life, you are not going to forget. Muslims bow to Mecca how many times a day? Does anybody know? 5 times a day. How many of you here would have the self-discipline and motivation and fortitude to stop everything you're doing 5 times a day, turn and face Mecca, bow to Mecca, pray to Allah, and get back to your day? That's a lot. But if you do that conscientiously, you'll remember to remember. I play chorus on to remember to remember. I have a mantra. It's actually a minor mantra, one of my mantras I do in my spiritual practice. It's a very minor mantra, but it really drew me. And what it means is, paraphrasing, "O my soul, remember all for which you have striven." Remember all for which you have striven. Simple mantra. Krato smara, kratam smara. Krato smara, kratam smara. And I do that over and over as I get into my practice, and then I turn it into a prayer. Krato smara, kratam smara. To get deeper inside myself to the place where I remember. And of course, there's almost always roses in my house because they remind me. So the question I pose for you as I end the sermon this morning is, what do you do to remember? Or, if you really want to get on my good side, everybody's on my good side, but I have a secret gooder side. I don't. But I just wonder, what do you do to remember? Or, if the sermon worked a little bit, what do you think you might start doing to remember? Anybody? Give you a rose if you have something. All right, I'll tell you what, we're a quiet group, and you need to think about this. But for now, there's a rose to remember. There's a rose to remember. Can you two share? There's a rose to remember. I figured you could. There's a rose to remember. There's a rose to remember. I don't have enough for everybody. That's flower communion. I know you two can share, you're holding hands. There's a rose to remember. And 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 there's a rose to remember. There's a rose to remember. All right. I think we're done. Oh, closing words. Got to close words, and then we'll be done. There's a potluck today. Most know, but if you're a guest and you don't know, you're welcome to the potluck. I'm going to skip the receiving line because I'm getting over the end of a really nasty cold this week, and I just don't want to get anybody ill, so perhaps I'll see you. Let us go our way, always remembering to make beauty for one another and letting love have jurisdiction. Blessed be.